It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a Friday. Gary, how's it going?
Well, it's just, what a week it's been. And before we get to all the stuff that people are talking about, let's get to something that nobody's talking about because this was just beautiful. I just read it to you here in the last couple of minutes. Alan gave this to me. Here's a headline. Cutting pollution to prevent climate change has accelerated climate change.
That's why I leave my lawnmower running all night. No reason at all. It's just sitting there idling.
Warm temperatures are accelerating due to human beings cutting down on the amount of pollution in the air. According to a new report, the steps that many would usually call for to curb climate change seem to be making it go faster. According to the New York Times. This is coming from a conservative outlet.
They're turning MAGA. They're going MAGA. Wait for it. Come on.
Right now.
Zuckerberg convinced them.
According to the New York Times, this past January was the warmest on record. And by the way, it wasn't in Texas. And beginning of February has been. And former NASA scientist James Hansen, who is known for his work raising awareness on climate change back in the late 1980s, has argued that cutting pollution out of the atmosphere is what's really making the Earth warmer. This is due, and this is the particulate matter that we've talked about, this is due to the little particles that are spewed out into the air when fossil fuels are burned. These small sulfate particles were helping to block the amount of rays from the sun getting to the earth. But since they have lessened, Hansen argued that the world has gotten warmer as a result.
The smog keeps us cooler.
Yes.
Okay.
The Times reported these particles spur the formation of more and brighter clouds, which help shield the earth from the sun. But as regulators have curbed sulfate pollution to protect people's lungs, this cooling effect has diminished, exposing the planet to more of the full force of greenhouse warming. Hansen's observations comes as scientists have been trying to discover why the last couple of years have appeared to be so much warmer than others. Some researchers looked into the factors impacting the atmosphere and came to the conclusion that something else aside from greenhouse gases were contributing to the increase of the world temperatures. Speaking to the press this week, Hansen said that the UN's goal on climate change appear to be impossible to achieve unless some miracle occurs that we don't understand.
Well, listen. Let's remember when Aquanet was destroying the ozone layer? What was happening with that? I don't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure all the 80s bands, together did a lot of damage. I don't know how that worked, but I think we get back to number one, smoking indoors. Number two.
Oh, my God.
I know it doesn't make sense for the whole smog thing because, it's got to be outside. But
no, but I liked it.
Yeah, but
it made no sense, but I liked it.
It's part of the conditioning to reculturize back to, sanity when you can smoke on planes. I don't know why I picked smoking. Smoking really is the biggest part of it.
Well, there is particulate matter in smoke.
There is. You can actually see it. I would say this. We all know the older cars are better. Trump needs to propose a new cash for clunkers, but this time we would be, instead of selling them, we'd be buying them. he would be giving you cash to go find some clunkers. It would be part of your tax rebate.
And Texas has just backed off your catalytic converter testing.
Exactly.
In the state of Texas, this is the first year that no longer are inspections required, but in the major metropolitan areas, you still have to get your, basically your exhaust checked, which is for particulate matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
So Texas needs to cut it out so we can have a cooler Texas.
Well, the cities need to stop it. Quit making it about you. Yeah, the emissions tests are still in play in those major cities. But if you live like in a smaller town in Texas, you could just, it's the Wild West. You just get on your horse and do whatever.
I can see that all of a sudden it's going to be, I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. Buffalo, Texas. That everybody will have a post office box in Buffalo, Texas.
Exactly.
So it's like Buffalo, Texas. Their population has grown to 17 million people.
Exactly. I know. I thought about that because I have a lot of friends who actually live out a little bit further. I say a lot, but a handful of friends that live out further. And I mean, like, they drive over an hour each way, which I think is insane to get to work. My job's not worth that. So the whole thing is that they live in these smaller areas where I haven't asked them yet. I meant to ask a couple of them, are you required? Because you drive in the city, but it's based on where you live. It's based on your address.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
right.
But again, I think we're doing the wrong things here. The large cities are killing the planet. We got to break up the large cities.
Well, remember that I can't remember who the guy was. We did this 20 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. The guy who came out that said that in order to save the planet, we must cut down to 1 billion people.
Yeah.
And I think this is so long ago that at that point, the population of the world was 7 billion.
Right.
And it's like, so 6 billion people are going to have to go.
Right.
And we're like, so what do you propose? What type of massive genocide are you promoting?
Exactly.
And he also said that no city can be over 25,000 people.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we can get there.
Oh, sure.
All right.
Sure.
Who's going to volunteer to die?
Right.
Who's going to volunteer?
Right.
We need volunteers.
Yeah.
What was the movie?
That was...
Where you didn't make it to 30? Part of it was filmed in Fort Worth.
Was that the sci-fi thing?
Yeah, the one where the one where it's like early 70s, I think. The movie where at 30 years of age, they basically killed you.
Right. Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's a classic sci-fi movie. Yeah.
Well, why is it sci-fi? There are people that want it to come true.
Actually, now it's. And then everybody's, all the 20-year-olds are, we shouldn't be living past 30. And then 9 years later, they're like, we shouldn't be living past 40. It's like Robert Reich speaking at Berkeley years ago. How long ago would that have been?
Logan's Run.
They did a remake of that. I didn't watch the remake. I haven't seen the original in I don't know how long. But yeah, part of it filmed just down the road here. But it's like Robert Reich speaking at Berkeley, and his premise was, all right, if I'm a candidate running for president and I'm going to be completely honest with you, by the way, I love the fact that Robert Reich in that moment had to go out of his way to, if I were going to be completely honest, but everybody knows I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he says, that's healthcare. This is how I would do it. Old people, you're going to have to go home and die. We're going to let you go home and we're going to let you go home and die. We're not going to make you go home and die. We're going to let you go home and die.
Well, I think they would have to make them go home and
die.
Well,
there would be that authority thing. We're going to let you go home. What do you mean by that?
Yeah,
you're not going to allow me to stay.
You really can't play semantics with that.
Yeah, it's the best point. It is the authority. Well, remember Obama. And by the way, and just to finish the thought, it's like Robert Reich all these years later. You still think the same, that old people should just go home and die?
Well, what we always liked about that audio cut
Yeah.
is he said young people are going to have to pay more.
And young people, and then the smattering of, there's not hardly any applause. you
Right,
know.
hardly any applause. And then
Old
he goes,
people have to die.
the cheering went up like, yay!
Boo,
It's like,
old people.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, you're in college right now. You might change your opinion on that in 40 to 50 years.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, you're the person we're now selecting. Well, we know you're healthy. We know. Look, you've got type 2 diabetes. This relates to me. And no, we're not going to give you those prescriptions that you need. You need to die a horrible death ASAP in order to save the planet.
Or,
And the health.
in that case,
and-
a good death with a bunch of donuts.
No, his point was,
Yeah.
if you're old, you got to die
yeah.
in order to save the healthcare system.
Right. And young people, you got to pay more.
Yeah.
And to finish his thought there, if he were to finish the sentence, if he were to be completely honest, it would have been, you got to pay more because you don't use your health care.
Right.
You got to pay for something, a lot more for something you rarely use.
Right. And then when you need it,
Yeah.
you're going to have
when you're
to die.
old, we're going to let you, when you need it, when you're older, we'll just let you go. If he would have fully expressed the thought there in a truly honest way, that would have been how he presented it. But it's, I don't know.
gosh.
I'll say this. We need to make America smoggy again. We need to save the planet. Listen, this is data.
Massa.
The New York Times.
Massa.
Make America smoggy again. We
To save the planet,
that's actually
masa.
Yeah, that's actually what you use to make tamales. So let's not get confused. We're not making tamales. The New York Times is on board here, which means it's proof. You can't refute this. We need more smog. If the New York Times is reporting
Yeah,
it.
what they're saying is getting rid of smog is causing the world to warm
Right,
a lot quicker.
right. See, we all wanted clean air. What the hell do we know?
Next thing we're going to find out, we need dirty water, too.
I've been breathing like a chump, and all along I've been breathing and killing the planet. I can't believe it.
How much particulate matter are you expelling?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we won't get into that. The older I get,
Eric
I'll
needs
tell you, it's on the increase.
Eric needs a catalytic converter. Where do we place that?
Right, exactly. I'll tell you where you can place it. It's it's the damned if you do, damned if you don't. The one thing about it is the particulate matter is the stuff you can actually see and measure.
Yeah.
We've talked about it for years.
We have, yeah.
Right? It's like nobody wants to breathe that stuff. But we have to make a decision here. We're talking about the planet.
Yeah, so there it is. Cutting pollution to prevent climate change has accelerated climate change, and the people making this case are the people that are, have been promoting the whole climate change thing for the longest time. I wonder if there's like a, devious goal here.
Right. Yeah. What's the play here?
What's the play?
Ultimately, what's the play? Because they're planting a seed. No, that's a great point. They're planting a seed, clearly planting a seed here for something. It's a new movement, and I don't know what it would be.
This week flew by, but it seemed like a year.
A year's worth of news. It was a year's worth of stuff, and that's basically what the Trump administration has become in just a couple of weeks. It's just been. It really is. This is a year's worth of headlines in a very short time. So much going on during the day on Thursday, but it just doesn't stop. I mean, you really can't look away for any amount of time. I'm at the point now where I just feel guilty for sleeping.
Yeah.
What am I going to miss?
We got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing. which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies, but the trick is to be proactive and not reactive. Conduct routine tire inspections and pay special attention to any unusual wear patterns. Once unusual tread wear is visible on a tire, its traction and stopping distance is reduced and its lifespan will likely be shortened.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, it was one of the best owns of the day.
Yeah.
And this is, the Democrats, and this is Senator Tina Smith from Minnesota.
Okay.
Elon Musk and his interns are meddling in Elon Musk and his interns meddling in aviation safety is truly terrifying. The Heritage Foundation responds with this video of a SpaceX rocket coming down and being grabbed by the arms.
Yeah.
And it said, how could Elon Musk ever be trusted with aviation safety with this video?
Right.
Here we go.
Booster now hovering as it aligns with the tower for catch.
Booster coming in. Get ready for that boom, Kate.
Down to 3 engines.
Booster ready for trip. McNamara has caught the booster.
And it shows. And there it is. There's this rock, the rocket hanging in the arms, and you can hear all the people, thousands of people cheering. That's what you hear in the background.
Because it looks like, by the way, to all of us older people, it looks like you're watching a video in reverse every time I see that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It doesn't look real to me.
It doesn't look real.
It really does. It just doesn't look real.
Yeah.
I'm still blown away by that, but it's just so funny. The Heritage Foundation, how could Elon Musk ever be trusted with aviation safety? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like,
they really don't know.
They've been 0 for 500 this week.
Mm-hmm.
They've been up to bat 500 times, and they're batting 0.
Right.
I mean, it's what an insane week it's been. But with DOGE, I was looking at CNN. Did you see the new polling? The polling on men playing women's sports.
Yeah.
Wow. Up 17 points since 2021. Those who believe the ban is correct. 21 points. I'm telling you, you and I were right. People were intimidated.
Yep. No, they were.
They were intimidated by the threats and the mob mentality and everything in it. Did you see Peggy Noonan's column just saying, well, it's obvious they went too far, and she just listed out where the Democrats went too far. Mm-hmm. They went too far on this, went too far on this, went too far on this, with the warning to the Trump administration, do it, but do everything right. Don't go too far. Learn from the Democrats.
Well, the thing is that the moves that Trump is making, for the most part, are based in, again, the reality that people are facing, right? These are fixes that he's doing to repair what's going, the whole idea behind MAGA, Make America Great Again, is repairing the things that the Democrats broke. And so
it's in response to the Democrats going too far.
So, and they're going too far on, they're all agenda items, but for the left, their agenda has to do with a lot of things that people, again, disagree with.
Her point was like in USAID.
Yeah.
If there's even one program that is great and you cut that, you may have to pay the price later on.
Right, okay, yeah.
That's what it is.
Sure.
I mean,
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. How's everyone today? You and I talked yesterday about the imagery of Trump there with all the girls and young women and women all surrounding him as he was signing the bill to keep men out of women's sports.
Yeah, right.
The interesting thing, the analysis was today, it's like, except for, you had Jasmine Crockett who went, crazy over it, and she was called a misogynist. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for getting on board with us on this. You cannot get more misogynist than the Democrats on the radical transgender movement.
Yeah.
But they said, except for her, almost all the Democrats were completely quiet on it. There wasn't this blowback against Trump on this issue at all, that they can't beat that imagery. Now, this is just a couple of weeks after every Democrat except two voted to have males playing female sports,
right?
Playing against females,
right?
Or as we say now, males being able to punch women in the face in sports,
Exactly,
because that would include,
well,
martial arts and things like that, and boxing and.
Well, we've again cited polls and everything else, and we go into the weeds on this and say, all right, look at what the rank and file believes versus how the Democrats are voting, and it doesn't add up. And so it makes you wonder, is that going to change?
Well, because you and I looked at some of the polls, and this is CNN, Harry Enton, again, looking at the polls, and here's this portion of it where he talks about where the country stands right now on it, which is amazing because the poll numbers have never been this great, ever, against it. Right. And you and I believe that the threats, the intimidation, what you and I saw going back, 8-9 years ago when they go on the college campuses, and you'd have, conservative, a lot of these conservative young people go on campus and ask about, the radical transgender movement, and then actually expand it. Remember? Well, if I said I'm 5'5", and if I told you I was 6'10", would I be 6'10"? Well, I guess if you wanted to be. And it's like, we all know that everyone on campus knew it was a line of horse manure.
Yeah, right.
Nobody bought into it, but they felt threatened. They felt threatened on a college campus. If they don't buy into the insanity, well, they could be punished for it. There would be punishment coming their way. That's how insane it got. And you and I talked about that for the longest time, that the blue wave of intimidation on that issue was unbelievable. I mean, what they did, the threats, you look at Riley Gaines and you look at the Ivy League, and the threats and the intimidation of how they were going to destroy women's lives and career and college experience was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And every single Democrat was for it. Every single Democrat is still for it. They don't know what to do because, as Scott Jennings said yesterday, the Democrats are idiots. Trump is picking out these issues that are 80-20, and they're sticking with the 20. Well, it's even more than it's 79-18 right now. By the way, here it is. Here's the part where they talk about it on CNN.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So, transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports. But it's not just the here and now, Laura. It's not just the here and now. What we're actually seeing is a trend on this particular issue, and it's going in the direction of opposition. So take a look here. Okay, transgendered female athletes, and amongst those Americans who oppose them in women's sports. Back in 2021, it was 62%. A majority, but, not anywhere close to a ginormous majority, right? A clear majority, but not a ginormous majority. But then again, you look here in 2025, you see it at 79%. So it's not just that the majority of Americans are opposed to transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's that the opposition has become considerably larger in just the last 4 years.
Looking at it, 79% of Americans are oppose men and women's sports. Duh. Democrats, 67%. Independents, 64%. Republicans, 94%. Moreover, the share who want the ban is up 17 points from 62% to 79%. Now, you and I both know nobody changes their opinion on something like this. They always held their opinion.
Yep.
They were afraid.
Yep.
Everyone knows men shouldn't be playing against women in sports.
Right.
The whole boxing thing that happened last year was just an atrocity.
Right.
And everybody knows it. It's ridiculous. It's stupid.
I think a lot is owed to Riley Gaines because as an athlete in that situation who has been there, and also been so vocal in telling people, this is what happened to me. This is how it goes. I think that's helped a lot in people feeling, I guess, that they could talk against the mob. This is what has happened, though, with the left. We'll come after you. Well, I mean, Riley Gaines, she was here at a university 30 minutes up the road, north of our studios. And people were screaming at other people that were going in that were part of that group when Riley Gaines was speaking. I don't know if they were screaming directly at her, but they were shouting. One person shouted, "I know where you live." That's the mob mentality. We'll come after you. We'll intimidate you until you either just keep quiet or you join our whole protest. Remember, silence is violence. This is the MO of the left. They cannot win this on the issues, so we will intimidate you and force you to either keep quiet or join us. And I think you're absolutely right. And something I've been saying, you're not going to win this against the parents, whether it's putting obscene material in front of small children or putting boys in girls' locker rooms. You're not going to win that with the parents. And here's the thing. When the left and whatever group was and companies that were going to war with Republicans over this, they brought the fight to the surface, which is a good thing because that's where it needs to happen, in front of everybody. Because I think a lot of these people that were intimidated by the mob and not talking about it, I think, and weren't honest maybe during previous polls in this case, I think they're looking at it, now going, well, no, it's at my door now. The fight is real. This isn't an isolated thing. You and I, when we started years ago on this, it was, guys, this is an isolated thing. Don't make this a national issue. It's not a national issue. And here we are.
Yeah, we had our own listeners telling us that.
Yep.
You guys are worrying about stuff that's not a big deal. And we're like, no, we understand. I think about when I first became a talk show host in 1989 and all the things that I was, stop talking about. You're just going down another slippery slope. Mm-hmm. Well, we're all down that slippery slope. And everything that we thought or projected could happen, happened, and even went further than we ever thought it would happen.
Right. And I really think you're absolutely right on this. The intimidation of the mob is starting to now fade away. But we're seeing that on how many fronts? I think you're seeing this with, when you talk about Mark Pincus and Michael Rappaport. I don't know if, Michael Rappaport is intimidated by anybody, but if the people who are now, talking about how and saying, oh my gosh, we were lied to, what the Democrats were saying about Trump and everything else, this new awakening of people, in some cases, I'm convinced is not an awakening. It's just as you say, it's people saying I'm no longer going to be intimidated by the mobs. And I believe it's because of the entire group of agenda items that are a threat to families. I mean, again, boys and girls' locker rooms, obscene material in front of kids.
Yeah,
This
sexualized
is something
content in front of children.
Yes, this is something that they're actually fighting for on the left. And I think, and I've said it multiple times, when it comes to parents, you won't win this. You can come after our children. You're not going to get them.
You know, you think about this issue. I'm trying to think because we've been talking about this for over a decade. I don't know if I've ever received any pushback for the opinions that we have held on that.
No.
In over 10 years, because we were warning people. In fact, I remember the first time we did it, where we're like, we're two guys saying that men competing against women is wrong.
Right.
Where are the women?
Right.
And
if anything, actually, we had a transgender that called in one time and said, look, I don't agree with this.
Right. Yeah, that was...
You go through the process, and for them it was personal. Look, I went through it, and it's what I went through, but I don't believe that boys should be in girls' locker rooms. It's a transition that takes place over years and everything else. But I don't remember seeing anything of any pushback at all.
I've never received any type of pushback at all, even when the Democrats were loud on it. The rank and file voter never bought into it. And I think a significant portion of Democrats they felt bullied, threatened, intimidated, because when you see that 2/3 of Democrats are against it, yet you didn't see that 3 years ago.
Right.
You don't have adults that change an opinion on something like that.
No.
You didn't have
No, you
people
don't.
that said, when I was 30 years old, I really thought that a biological man could be a biological woman if they said so. And then 10 years later or 3 years later at 33 say, well, no, now that I've thought about it, I don't think that men can become biological women just because they say so.
Right.
They gave their answer because they were intimidated by the insanity of the threatening left.
Yep.
And you think about it, I mean, not Wall Street Journal, Fox looking here, the article, Representative Jasmine Crockett says Trump's transgender athlete ban doesn't protect women. You saw a ton of these articles. This one from Fox, most Democrats have opted to remain silent in response to Trump's executive order. One Democrat is not. Representative Jasmine Crockett, we read her comments yesterday, which were insane, saying it banned trans kids from playing sports. No, it doesn't. That's a lie. She can only make her points by lying. But then again, the biggest lie is that a biological man can become a biological woman if they say so.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact is, when you saw it, you and I go back to Josh Hawley talking to the professor from Berkeley.
Yeah.
Where he's asking questions. He goes, well, that's transphobic. What do you mean? Well, because transgenders have one of the highest rates of suicide, and if you talk about it, they might commit suicide, was her message. He goes, well, then they've got mental health problems, and maybe you shouldn't be cutting off their private parts. Maybe if you have a group that's one of the highest in attempted suicides, then maybe they need professional help instead of enabling them, by cutting off their private parts and allowing children to do that. Maybe you should be concerned about them, and that's what we've said. The left didn't give a damn about those people as individuals.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And so yesterday, the NCAA has officially changed their policy of allowing men in women's sports. It is now banned. Trump put this out on True Social. Exciting news due to my executive order, which I proudly signed yesterday. The NCAA has officially changed their policy of allowing men and women's sports. It is now banned. This is a great day for women and girls across the country. Men should have never been allowed to compete against women in the first place, but I am proud to be the president to save women's sports. All you Democrat ladies out there, your feminist president is President Trump. We expect the Olympics Committee to also use... You think that was a taunt there? We expect the Olympics Committee to also use common sense. Well, now Trump's going too far.
Yeah.
We expect the Olympics Committee to also use common sense and implement this policy.
Let's be realistic here. Slow down. Peggy Noonan, don't go too far, right?
I don't think that's what she meant.
The Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
As always.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, we made it, didn't we?
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Let's see what the president wants to do when it comes to what Congress will be looking into, which is extending his tax cuts. What are the priorities of what the president wants? Here we go.
So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap, eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest tax deduction loophole, tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this.
All right. So I asked you, because they didn't get into specifics, eliminating special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners. What special federal tax breaks do owners in the NFL, NBA, NHL, or whatever get? I've never heard of that.
No, locally they get incentives, the tax breaks they get on stadiums and all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, they don't just get tax breaks. The taxpayers are willingly building their factories for them.
All right. So,
by the way, with the NFL awards yesterday, just very quickly since I mentioned it.
Go ahead.
It just is really interesting that everybody remembers Damar Hamlin. Remember, died on the field. And he started for the Bills last year. He didn't win Comeback Player of the Year. He's probably going to be talking about that the rest of his life. I died on the field and came back, and still that wasn't enough to win Comeback Player of the Year.
Right, exactly.
I came back from the dead.
When it comes to comeback players, he's the GOAT.
I know, exactly.
He is the GOAT.
It's like he should get it every year
as long as he's playing.
And he started for the Bills last year, and it's just like, and that was the thing. How can't he win Comeback Player of the Year?
Yeah, right.
He died. He came back from death.
Yes, right. Wow. Okay. New York Post. Owners currently are able to deduct their tax liability, the full purchase price of a franchise over 15 years.
On the federal level?
Those deals can be massive, with the Washington Commanders football team selling for a record $6.05 billion in 23. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do other do other industries get that break? Or is it
I don't know if that's because, I don't know, you deduct, hold on a second, how they phrase it, deduct from their tax liability the full purchase price of a franchise over 15 years, the full purchase price. Yeah, that sounds like something that is, the way they phrase it. I'd have to look into the tax law there. But we'll.
All right, we'll look into. Yeah, let's look into that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I saw that, I went, I just don't know what federal breaks that they get that nobody else gets. That's interesting if they got it, because that's never been brought up before. I've never heard in any of our discussions that we have had. Remember, a couple of years ago, it was like, the NFL is nonprofit. And it was like, no, it's not nonprofit. The office of the NFL was viewed as it's not anymore, but as a nonprofit entity. But at that point, remember the discussion was, no, they have to pay taxes on all their profits.
Yeah.
Just like regular corporate tax, like anybody else.
Right.
And it was like, well, no, but the NFL office, they said, yeah, but all the owners set that up as it's no longer a nonprofit, the office.
Yeah, right.
But the office itself wasn't part of the money making. It's the individual owners and what they make from, merchandising, fans coming to the games, TV, all that. The NFL office may be the place where that's all disseminated, but the office itself, they were saying, was not for profit because they're a special type of business circumstance, which they are in a way. They're a unique business model that you don't see in most businesses.
From part of an article from last April, from BloombergTax.com. This is linked in the New York Post story. The Internal Revenue Code can provide massive tax benefits to acquirers of sports franchises, as the full purchase price can typically be expensed over time. This can allow for the reporting of significant tax losses. So if they go over, if they spread it out, because they also point out in this Bloomberg article, the growing value of these franchises.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So the price of these franchises. So what was the example that they gave?
Well, I guess my point would be, if another billionaire buys another company, do they get that same tax break?
Outside of sports.
Outside of sports.
Right. Is it unique to sports? Right. Because I know there are similar write-offs. I don't know, again, to what extent. Are they partial write-offs at that level? Because we're talking billions of dollars. And if you can write that over years, then you can show losses depending on the team, I guess up to they can write it off. They can stretch it out over 15 years.
And you can, the interesting thing is, on the one hand, it's like, these billionaire owners, they need to be held accountable. Hey, give them a bunch of state and local tax dollars, would you please? We can't lose our team.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
There's this this push and pull with even the fans out there. And, now, but I don't think you're going to get the NFL, especially with the NFL, when you see, the personal seat licenses and everything else coming for most teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I look at, I was really fascinated by the whole thing with the Dallas Mavericks and, Luka being traded and just the reaction of the fans and people like in the last 5 years. I've had season tickets and just bought them the last couple of years. And it amazes me because I love basketball. Basketball is what I grew up playing. I love hockey. I love basketball. I come from a football town, though. I mean, football is, no, religion is way down here. Football is like up about 12 levels from religion. Not that religion isn't important, but I mean, this is football we're talking about.
Right.
But I mean, it's just, people are quite passionate in Buffalo about football, but, they're complaining like crazy. Now, the seat licenses there for the new stadium aren't as great as other places. But when you see, for example, I remember, and this goes back 20 years ago, when I would go to maybe one or two Dallas Mavericks games a year, and I'd get really good seats because it's useless to be sitting up there in the third level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, well, I'll watch it on TV. But this was when Dirk Nowitzki played, and this goes back probably to, because I haven't bought a ticket since 2004, I don't think, was the last time I went. And I get like twice a year, I get expensive tickets. Like I might pay $200 a ticket to get down closer to actually watch the action.
Right.
And so they came to me, they called me and said, would you like to buy season tickets? And it was like on the third level. And it was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I'm like, you out of your mind? Why would I have a much better seat on TV. Why would I ever pay that for the third level? Said I just buy a couple of tickets a year to sit down close so I can, and then that's when I would get ticked off because the public address announcers, and that's where I came up with that entire bit of why the NBA has the announcers screaming and yelling and telling you when to cheer, how to cheer, why to cheer, and then chastising you for not cheering. And they got these, the new in public address announcers that scream like crazy at you. And then we realized that the NBA is really most popular in all liberal cities. And so the owners believe that liberals are stupid and they need to tell them when to cheer, how to cheer, why to cheer, and then chastise them for not cheering. But when I see the amount of money that people have to pay, you're really not going to get sympathy. And anything when it comes to tax increases. Now, I'll tell you this, with some of the things that he's talking about the fact, okay, I want to give, he's admitting that all these tax cuts are not going to bring in more revenue, which is why he's advocating for these other tax increases.
Right.
And you and I, we talked about the Laffer curve, and there is a point of the Laffer curve, if you lower taxes, that you'll get more revenue. And then even on the Laffer curve, there's a point where if you go too far, you'll get less revenue. The only thing is nobody can figure out exactly what that point is. That was we talked about a few weeks ago.
Right.
The other things that they talk about, no tax on tips. Well, let's be honest. The most important part of this is no tax on seniors' Social Security. That's the most important part. And that's because this is purely self-interest. I have to start collecting, I think it's end of September. I'm not retiring, but it's that's the maximum age that you can collect Social Security, and you have to start taking it at that point. And so I believe that would be a great thing that I could get on and promote how wonderful it is to have no tax on my Social Security. And I'd be doing that just to, again, promote what a good idea it is for all senior citizens.
You'd be doing it, we're people should know, as you and I age, we have become stronger advocates for the retired community.
Yes, exactly.
Because we think they are overlooked.
Yes.
Far too often.
But when you see, nobody has talked about this at all. I find this really interesting. I haven't seen any discussion. I don't care what publication I've gone to, the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime pay. Now, the problem is there. How? Because there's going to be massive lawsuits on that. Because initially you say, oh, no tax on tips, that's great. Well, if somebody on tips makes $40,000 a year and the tips are $15,000 of it, and you make $40,000 a year in your regular job, there's going to be a massive 14th Amendment lawsuit on that one. It's all income. It's all income. Now, Social Security is not viewed the same as, well, it did become, no, it's not viewed the same as income because you don't have to pay even if you get to the maximum, you still don't have to pay, what is it? I forgot what it is now. Is it the 30% of Social Security you don't have to pay, or is it 15%? I forgot. Whatever the total amount is. So it's not viewed as the same type of income as actual income from employment. But income from employment has always been taxed exactly the same at a particular level that you reach.
Right.
And so I just wonder whether they can do that. I don't know. Somebody's looking into that and saying, yeah, well, we can get around that. I just wonder how you can. Same thing for no tax on overtime pay. It's all income. You're working extra hours. You're getting paid. There are people that are on salary that may be working the same hours that you work. And I believe somebody's going to file a 14th Amendment suit on that. And I don't know how you resolve that. I don't know the legalities of it. And I haven't seen anybody in the labor legal community talk about that at all.
I haven't seen that yet. It will be interesting to see the challenges on that. No taxes for tips. When he announced it, it was like, okay, all right. There was conversation about it. It kind of went away during the campaign, and now, back in full swing. And I know a lot of people in HR and payroll. My wife does that, but it's all right. Now you're going to, it's and they do this all the time. Like you pay a commissioned salesperson differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than you do an hourly person differently than a salaried person, and different rules apply if you're salaried versus hourly and everything else. So, for them, they just have to figure that out. It's a lot of work. They will do it. Last time I talked about this, I got to say, well, you're making it sound like it's impossible. We do it all the... No. I wasn't saying it was impossible. It's just there's a ton of work that has to go into it to change the model of, how you're going to pay people. And to make sure you get that right, you don't want to take out too much in taxes. You don't want to take out too little. And you want to make sure at the end of the day that you're paying them what you owe them if you're a company, And so it's all about compliance at whatever level. But I don't know how there won't be a legal challenge. We'll see where it goes. I just don't, I haven't put it out on the spreadsheet. It's a little bit of a puzzle in how you're going to basically reformat the workforce, which again is done with like commissioned salespeople, but not on taxes, right? They earn differently, but they pay the taxes the same. Hourly, you earn differently than salaried. You pay the same taxes based on brackets,
right? Whether you get commission,
mm-hmm.
whether you get tips,
yep.
Whether it's a salary,
right.
You whatever your taxable income is, and this is basically the enforcement of the 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody pays the exact same. You can't move it
if you're in that bracket.
You're in that bracket,
right?
Now you'd have to change.
Oh, the brackets would have to change completely because it would have to have exceptions.
Well, yeah, exceptions. Yeah, any tip money,
right? Yeah,
we'll continue this conversation. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF Fuel Power Max.
When freight markets threw their small fleet a curveball in 2024, Alpha Drivers Transportation's Alec Kostouris and his team got creative to add value.
How do we operate the trucks, capturing and leveraging our strengths in light of those markets? So, for example, somebody who's living off the load board is probably dying on the vine. We decided that we would be better off. First, it was with Joel and Travis running together, and now it's Travis and his brother Connor running together as a team. So we are able to provide a high level service, get some premium to what I call the base rate in that regard. Another strategy has been we brought one of the trucks out to Colorado where we work with a dedicated customer. So it's more of quality of service than quantity of service.
Find plenty more advice from Overdrive Magazine's Truckers of the Month and Trucker of the Year winners at overdriveonline.com/PIB.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Will be interesting. You and I have talked about the fact that all the executive orders are fine and dandy, and will for the next 4 years change things. But you've got to get congressional approval, no matter what you're talking about. Eventually, unless you have total executive, powers to do things, which he does have a significant executive powers to actually do some of the things that he is doing. When it comes to tax legislation, he doesn't, and it sounds great, but what will Congress do? What will the Republicans in Congress do? Remember, they can only lose a couple of votes.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's been a lot of discussion over the last 24 hours that Democrats, for example, have been completely quiet except for Jasmine Crockett on the whole transgender thing.
Right.
But they all voted against it except two people just 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So they may be quiet on it, but is it just that they've changed their mind, or they're just trying to find another way to defend the misogyny of the radical transgender movement?
Right. A new approach they're looking
Right.
for, maybe.
And we'll get more of that coming up here on taxes and other things. Thanks.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. As always, we do appreciate it. Just looking here, what was I looking at before? Yeah, Jeff sent us this. Guys, the no tax on tips is a cheap gimmick. Of all the tax reform ideas out there, the fair tax is the only real solution. And continues on. It's like, doesn't matter. Nobody's talking about it, Democrats or Republicans. When the fair tax was being talked about in Congress, for example, with Rand Paul, we talked about it. To talk about something that, and we've talked about the fair tax, which is really the sales tax.
Yeah.
And, we're for it. But it doesn't matter whether we're for it. It's not what's being discussed. We talk about what's being discussed right now. About what's trying to be done and the legal issues. But there's nobody in Congress. I haven't even heard Rand Paul bring it up recently.
Right, yeah.
But it's, I agree with you. I'd rather have the fair tax, but that's not what the country wants.
Right.
It's that simple. Yeah. Otherwise, there would be more of a movement towards it.
Right.
And like I said, with he said it's a cheap gimmick. Well, it all depends. If you're somebody who is making tips, it's not a cheap gimmick.
Right.
If you get it, none of it, all of it is particular tax policy, and a lot of tax policy is ridiculous. As Eric and I said at the bottom of the hour, when we were off the air, I looked at you and said, well, taxes aren't going to get simpler. Remember that movement?
Yeah.
Remember you're going to be able to do your taxes on a postcard.
Yeah.
Well, now taxes are going to get more complicated.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Ted Cruz.
So Trump is doing this. Trump is doing this just as a payoff to tax preparers.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to do what? And we're buying Gaza? What's going on? Yeah. Well, the issue will be, I think the legal challenge on this will be looking at the bracket, right? Okay, let's say you make $65,000 a year salaried, and someone makes $65,000 a year and 25 of that is in tips. I know our server friends who are just now getting out of the restaurant are laughing at $65,000 a year. Just bear with me. It's just an example, just a number. But the person making the salary is going to say, wait a minute. I don't get a break on 20 grand of mine, and I'm working 14 hours a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at a contractor who's also taxed differently because it's your business. So any small business owner, well, they're working 20 hours a day in some cases, right? But they've got to pay a different type of tax, but they're, again, in that same bracket. Well, wait a minute. I'm working really hard, and I'm not getting the break because I'm not, because it's not a tip. It's my business. And that will be, I think, the legal challenge. It's, again, they came up with the entire bracket thing of, all right, everybody who falls in this, you make this, and there it is. And everybody is taxed equally within those brackets. And so, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I don't know that I don't know this thing has. It's they're clearly they want to they were out yesterday they were pushing all this. The team owners thing, by the way, you're going to get. What are we talking about in the NFL? We're talking about basically 32 people. I mean, there's more owners sometimes than one, right? But still, you're getting.
Well,
it's
in
a separate
in the NFL,
right? Exactly. So it is not something that, if you look at that like that type of write-off, there are other write-offs, real estate depreciation and everything else that they have changed over the years, for different types of revenue, different types of income, rather. But, here's the thing. If you've never won a Super Bowl, do you get a special tax exemption as a team? Or in the case of the Cowboys, if it's been 29 years since you've won a Super Bowl. Those are things that on the emotion, it's like, yeah, why are these billionaires getting, they should get it the first year, basically, the write-off and the year that they purchased the team, but beyond that, don't stretch it over 15 years. I could see them doing that, and people would go, yeah, okay, fine. There's not going to be this groundswell. But on the taxes, no taxes for tips. Look, you're talking about servers in restaurants. You're talking about, a lot of people that, again, are working. It's a job I could never do. I can't keep my brain intact to remember what goes to what table or any of that, anything that would, or a bartender, I probably couldn't do that job either. And it's long hours. You're on your feet and everything else, and we get it. But the problem is treating people differently within those brackets is going to have a legal challenge.
Right, because the class warfare in this particular case is not about people who aren't working and getting welfare. Right. In this particular case, you're talking about all people that are working and treating some people who work and make the same money as you differently and giving them breaks you don't get. That's a tough one now it hasn't come out yet. It never came out in the campaign. You didn't see it at all, but it's something that Democrats will hit. Why are the Republicans treating people who make the same amount of money differently than other people? How effective it will be, I don't know. You and I have always talked about, the whole overtime thing, that if you work overtime, you may reach a certain, level and then have to pay more in taxes. But in essence, we've talked about taxes in general. And is that a good thing? Is that a good thing to do? Because here you have people who work a lot of people that work a lot of overtime want to save money, which means in all likelihood there'll be less of a burden on government. Yet, boom, they're taxed more. And you can talk about when it comes to the fair tax, as Jeff brought up earlier, versus income tax, about the problems with it. You and I have talked about the problems with all different taxes. Property taxes, for example.
Right.
And the problem with that we see in the state of Texas. They're trying to solve some of those problems, especially with seniors.
Yeah.
I got a huge last year, a year and a half ago, huge come down. My property taxes, because I'm a senior, went down. Wow, 20%. I have never seen that. I have never got a tax reduction, really, for anything ever.
Right.
like that.
Right.
You know, even in the Trump tax cuts last time, you and I paid more taxes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We didn't
Some
get
deductions went away.
Yeah, some of our business deductions went away.
Right.
That are legit. I think are legit business deductions.
Right.
Because the whole goal of those deductions is to help you make more money, which means, in essence, if you make more money, you pay more in taxes down the road.
For those that don't know, we buy and sell foosball teams, and we got a special tax break for that. They did away with it.
So when you look at you can look at the problem in any taxes out there. One of the things about the fair tax is, but you're only taxed if you buy something, and you can control a lot of what you buy because most fair tax proposals don't tax, for example, food.
Right.
So there are some things that they don't tax. And you see, for example, even on state tax, where going back to school, okay, it's going back to school. It's more of a necessity. It's tax-free, for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen those kind of things that are done on sales tax. So, you can look at these tax systems, but that's not where the country is at right now. The country is not looking at that right now.
Right.
And so the other thing that I would say is when you're looking at tips, do the majority of people, I don't know what the statistics on this, normally you're not talking executive people that work in executive suites that are getting tips. Most tips are paid, when you think about it, for jobs that are viewed as lower income. Do those people right now, do the majority of those people actually pay income tax when we know that the bottom 50% of wage earners don't pay any federal tax? That's another thing to look at. I don't know what the statistics would be on that.
Right.
As for Social Security, that's a whole different ballgame. They didn't tax Social Security till 81 or 82.
Right.
I remember when that happened. There was a huge outcry when that happened.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be viewed completely different, especially by people like me that will benefit off it.
Right. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting more angry about it, though, as time goes on.
You're 10 years behind me.
Yeah.
But it'll all be interesting. But, Jeff, if Republicans in Congress, if Rand Paul wants to bring up the fair tax, let's see where that goes.
Oh man, I'd love it. Yeah,
but nobody's
talking about it.
That's not even on the table from Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, quite unfortunately,
it'll be interesting to see how Democrats will vote on this. I think it's still going to be a mess inside the Republican Party.
I think that's where it's funny because you just mentioned that, and I haven't yet put any thought to how the Democrats will vote on it. In my mind, it's always the thought has always been the GOP, because it's all right. How are you going to break this thing up? Right, you're going to have to redesign the bracket with exceptions for, again, certain types of income, and it would be essentially I don't know. You would just have to, in the reporting, you would say, okay, 25,000 of it was in tips. And then there would be a readjustment to that. So you don't necessarily redesign the brackets. It's a tax deduction. A special tax deduction in that for that type of revenue, which is, again, really, it's a very different approach, and I guess we'll see where it goes. I don't know. Again, the legal challenge will come, but again, I just don't know. I don't know what the solution would be. I don't know what the answer would be.
Here's another question. All they said was adjusting the SALT cap. Which way?
Yeah, right. Well, I think they want to go in the upward direction.
I think so too.
The question is adjusting it how far? Right? Lifting it from, I don't know, where is it? 10,000? to 20, or removing it altogether. That came up last year, removing it altogether.
Didn't they go up? Doesn't it go up every year a little bit?
Does it?
I
don't know.
thought it did on
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, right. Well, I can ask my tax guy. I'm hiring somebody this year, but
Okay.
that's something again that was the GOP did it, and it was like, okay, because in Manhattan it might be whatever it was, $60,000 or whatever it is. Well, now in the higher tax states, higher tax areas, but some of the GOP got hit on that. And so we've felt that the GOP has since that happened, and we always suspected they would look to move that.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More on this week and everything that we have seen. More on DOGE. It's just
they're really going bat soup crazy on the whole DOGE thing. I mean, they've just honed in on Elon Musk. He's the new evil.
Your thing is, as we have stated, there are just, and we'll give an example of one Republican senator sitting up there saying, here's what we're spending money on. That's all Republicans have to do to win this.
Yeah, right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. Just reading here from Washington Examiner, Byron York. 7 points about the war over DOGE. DOGE, excuse me. There's no doubt that the Musk team is finding indefensible spending at USAID, just like some in Congress have found the same spending at USAID, state, and other agencies. Critics point out that the $40 billion in foreign aid is a tiny bit of the $7 trillion federal budget. True, but there's no case for spending even $1 of taxpayer money on an LGBTQ plus comic book in Peru. Number 3, the Trump State Department is committed to continuing life-saving humanitarian assistance that is legitimate foreign aid like food, malaria, drugs, etc. Number 4, Democrats have put themselves in a weak position defending the bad as well as the good. With foreign aid, they're going to war over the least popular federal spending. Number 5, some Republicans argue that it's ridiculous for Trump to save, say, $1 billion with DOGE and then add hundreds of billions to the debt with excess spending. True, but that's an argument for controlling other spending as well. What about Musk? He has brought huge enthusiasm to DOGE, but he has also said things to diminish the seriousness of the project. He even bragged that he passed up attending great parties in order to spend time feeding U.S. aid into the wood chipper. Such sacrifice. By the way, I don't think anybody cares about that. In the end, this is not a Musk project. It is a Trump project. Musk has no authority inside the executive branch beyond what the president has temporarily granted him. That's why Trump has gone out of his way to say that Musk can't do and won't do anything without our approval. It's all about Trump, not Musk. So there you go.
Well, which is weird or different in the left's approach here, because I guess because they know, look, Trump has a mandate from the American people. They can't win it on that, so they're trying to make a case for a shadow government. By the way, shadow, and I've heard liberals say this in recent days over this whole thing. Shadow government is, typically something you can't see. Elon Musk has been very, very much out there in front of everybody and open about it. It's been very transparent. It's an advisory role. That's it. He's an advisor. I don't know. I would love this conversation to go on, but next summer, DOGE is going to end, unless they extend it. It's going to July 4th. It's over, and here's the I guess list of things they find and everything else. In the meantime, why wouldn't you get to work right away creating greater efficiencies?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
The government buyout thing. Typically, and for the most part, it's people that were not going to stay anyway, whether they're retiring or they were looking to leave, they're moving on. And for the most part, that's the people that are taking part in that, or accepting that offer, that buyout. That's where it goes.
60,000 now.
Yeah. So, you get it. And honestly, trimming the fat politically has always been a very populist idea, which means it's popular, which means people will say, oh, yeah, we should trim the fat. We should trim the fat. Now, if we're talking about layoffs, it becomes a little more problematic politically. We're laying off, we're firing, and, that becomes a little more problematic. But if you talk about the workforce in general, not a lot of sympathy if, again, you're looking to cut expenses. Layoffs happen in the private sector all the time. So going after DOGE, going after Elon Musk is, again, you create the big evil. Look at all these billionaires. Okay. 2 words. George Soros. We can go we can do this all day. But is what they're doing, first of all, again, he doesn't have authority. He's been given a set of tasks, or DOGE is basically going through and performing a set of tasks here. The authority is with the president. The ultimate authority is with the president. And I know the left is relearning this, because your president for the last 4 years didn't really do anything. He really wasn't in control, which is kind of odd that you're complaining. Was it the Babylon Bee? Didn't they have a story, a headline like that about the complaining about the side that had basically a shadow government for the last 4 years is complaining about Trump's shadow government. But your guy wasn't in control. And you're not happy having a president who is, clearly. It may be new to a lot of the younger reporters. They may not remember anything before the last 4 years. I really think this is, again, a futile effort, and they look like children, like they always do, screaming and crying. And,
here it is. Democrats warn Trump's unelected shadow government is dismantling their unelected shadow government.
Exactly. It's like McCabe talking about the FBI is in shambles. Really? Is it? Is it really?
Democrats delay Kash Patel vote as FBI has not finished shredding all their documents.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all the Babylon Bee. Just so
I love it.
Just so people know, Biden signs with the talent agency, lands role as a corpse on CSI.
Oh my gosh.
Archaeologists discover Sodom and Gomorrah was funded by U.S. aid.
Oh, wow.
World Health Organization warns Trump funding cuts may delay release of a new pandemic. That's closer to the truth.
I know.
It's
wonder funny because it's true.
No wonder they say fake news.
Yeah.
Babylon Bee.
It's
fake news you can trust.
Exactly. Again, things are moving very quickly. Trump knows 4 years is not a long time to fix all the things that they broke. And to McCabe, by the way, I would say, yeah, you know what? You're right. The FBI is in shambles. Weaponizing the FBI did a lot of damage, and it's time to clean it up. You're right. It is in shambles. And that's, everywhere you look, all the mess, the cleanup, the rubble, the rot. It's not easy. And we knew it wasn't going to be easy. And it's going to require a lot of effort I'm surprised there hasn't been, Jeff Bezos isn't over at USPS telling them how to get the mail there more efficiently as a part of DOGE. It's an Everest of a mountain.
My favorite. A subscriber. This actually didn't come from the Babylon Bee. This is a subscriber. They let people throw in their own headlines at the Babylon Bee.
Mm-hmm.
Springsteen to headline U.S. aid fundraiser concert.
U.S. aid.
U.S. aid.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the problem that the Democrats have with DOGE. This is Senator Eric Schmidt yesterday. Here we go.
Because you can't really defend this kind of stuff. $45 million for diversity and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $3 million for girl-centered climate action in Brazil. $125 million to racialize public health. $288,000 for diverse birdwatcher groups. USAID, which is in the center of the storm right now, and rightfully so, spent $1.5 billion to, quote, advance diversity, equity, inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. $70,000 for the production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $2.5 billion for electric vehicles for Vietnam. $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. Not Columbia, Missouri, or Columbia, South Carolina, the country of Colombia. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. This is what they're mad about.
You can't, and so if you sit there, because look, you and I look and go, look, foreign aid's a very small portion of it, but you don't sit there just because that's like in our budget. And people look at their budget and they look at it and go, well, I'm going to cut my cable TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but your cable TV is just it doesn't matter. It's part of it.
Right.
I'm cutting the cord. I'm not going to pay that anymore.
Right.
I'm not getting a return on my investment.
There's zero reason to be paying it.
And when the Trump administration says, we don't care whether it's a small amount, if it's a wasted amount of taxpayer dollars, we said we're going to go line by line. It's what the American people expect from us.
Yep.
And your argument is, well, we haven't cut other stuff. We'll get there.
Yep. Great. Bring it to the table.
Now, the challenge will be, there is actually a challenge here. If you have 60,000 people on the federal government who, let's say, in 2 weeks are gone, that's going to affect the unemployment rate.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, because of the number of cuts that you're making of government spending adds to the GDP. You and I have always talked about the fact, but it really isn't economic growth or economic growth that you want. It doesn't matter. That's how they calculate it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're cutting all this stuff and you, for example, if you have 60,000 federal employees that take the buyout, therefore they're unemployed, will they be viewed as unemployed? I don't know how. I guess each one would be specific as to whether they're going to remain in the workforce or whether they're retired. If they all retire, they don't count for the unemployment rate. But you're going to have also thousands and thousands of people, because they're cutting some of these stupid programs in the private sector, that will lose their job. You already have an economy right now that isn't the greatest coming out of the Biden administration. We've talked about some of the job cuts and some of the weak job markets, numbers coming out in December and January. But the good thing for Trump is he's not going to be reelected. And the goal is, by the time you get to the midterms, that you will see the economic, positives that come out of doing what they're doing.
Sure.
But, there's always going to be, Democrats are looking for anything. They're not going to change.
No.
You and I talked about how completely quiet, except for Jasmine Crockett and her insanity. Just so people know, there are insane people in Texas, too. I know it's a shock, but there are.
Yep.
But her coming out and saying, we're not protecting women. I mean, stop doing acid.
Right. Right. Exactly. What planet are you on?
Well, what do you mean we're not protecting women? If you don't protect men, you're not protecting women.
Right, exactly.
What does that mean? If you don't allow men to play women's sports or men to be in women private areas, then women suffer because of that? Yes. Stop doing the acid.
It'd make more sense if you said, look, if fewer women are able to play sports, it means they won't get hurt. We're protecting them by taking
women.
them out of sports.
Right.
You'd make more sense if you made that stupid argument.
The Democrats' new feminism.
Yeah.
If women stay in the kitchen and barefoot.
That's right.
Okay, maybe not barefoot because they may step on something and cut their foot. If women stay, I took that too far. To fit the old rhetoric of a sexist. All right, but if women stay in the kitchen, they are less likely to be harmed. We are protecting women.
Exactly. Heard a comedian one time say, I have 2 daughters, and I look to empower them at every turn. They're named Barefoot and Pregnant, and I told the other day when they were making me a sandwich, I told them to. He just does this whole bit, It's like, oh my gosh, and this is the leftover. The moon on the crazy scale now. And with the polls changing more and more and more against them, are they going to change their votes on Capitol Hill?
They haven't.
They haven't yet?
They didn't 2 weeks ago. I think they're just trying to find a new strategy.
Yeah, they're just shopping around to how do we sell this, right?
How can we sell? We didn't sell it good enough.
Right.
The most frequent thing I hear is take it to the streets. The Democrats want riots in the streets. It's what they want. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Let's play this audio cut here of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson yesterday. Here we go.
I want to start this morning by addressing a few things we've heard this week from our Democrat colleagues. It's been pretty surprising. Here's a few quotes. Shut down the city. We are at war. We're going to fight it in the streets, it was said. This is what the beginning of a dictatorship looks like. This is their reaction to the flurry of activity that's come out of the new administration, and the president is doing exactly what he said on the campaign trail that he is going to do, would do, and he's delivering on that, and we're a big part of that, and we're going to do it as well. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party truly is seemingly lost. They have no rudder, they have no vision, they have no clear leader. The only message they have is anti-President Trump, and we've all seen that that's a failed strategy time after.
There you go.
Yeah.
And, it's what a bizarre week it was when you think about it, and you saw all the Democrat press conferences where they were going crazy this week. And then it gets to the president with all those girls and women around him. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for protecting it so men don't play against us, so men don't punch us in the face.
Yeah.
And I said it yesterday, and you and I both agreed with it, which was like, you can't beat that imagery. And so except for Jasmine Crockett and her absolute insanity, really the Democrats, that was the thing. Democrats really quiet about it. 2 weeks after all the members of the Democrats in Congress, except two, voted to continue having men play against women, men inside of women's private places naked, and they don't know what to do. They're completely lost.
Yeah, they really are.
And everyone knows it, even the late-night talk show host.
Yeah.
Fetterman did an interview yesterday where he said the same thing.
Right.
They're lost.
One 866 Red Eye. Call with your reaction. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Good morning. Thanks for being here. You know, I want to play this now. It's really changing the topic a little bit from what we're at, but I thought we played this at the latter part of the show yesterday. So I thought it's appropriate to play now because I think this is totally indicative. This really is what's wrong with the Democratic Party. And it's the audio that we played yesterday from the CNN contributor. I forgot her name again. What is it? I'll tell you in a second here. But she was on with Scott Jennings and everything else. She's a CNN contributor, has worked exclusively for liberal networks and liberal politicians. And she's a victim. Listen to this here, because this is just amazing. It shows you everything. It has, she's a victim. She has so much education. And every single job that she has not, she's been the lowest paid person because she's a black woman. But all she's ever worked at is for liberals and liberal networks.
Right.
Here we go.
I do not have the same opportunity as you.
By the way, Ashley Allison is her name.
Okay.
Former National Coalition's Director for Biden-Harris 2020.
I know I don't.
And you know
and
that
I know
too.
what, Scott.
I got it. And you know that.
Let me just tell you about me.
I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to answer this.
I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about how I feel. Me, a black woman in this country.
But not in this city.
And I will run. And if you want
me to, I'm a New Yorker, not in this city. You cannot say that. You can't say that in this city. But I have a.
I'm not talking about New York. I'm talking about Ashley
let her finish.
Allison right here. I got a law degree, a master's, and 2 bachelors. Probably more education than all of y'all added up together at this table,
Fine
right?
by me.
And I have always been the least paid person on payroll at every institution I have worked in. And it's not
Even
because
in the White House?
Even in the White House.
Well, whose fault is that? I don't think you worked for George W. or Trump.
Well, guess wasn't what happened when I was there. DEI.
I mean, do they even Is there any self-awareness of what they are communicating on the left?
I don't think she knows what she's saying.
I'm a victim. I have more education. Well, I have more education, so I should make more money.
More education than everybody combined on that panel.
Exactly. And she's been the lowest paid person at all the institutions she's worked at, which has been liberal and Democrat institutions. She's been the lowest paid because she's a black woman. As we've told you, the place where racism and misogyny has been institutionalized is the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying. She doesn't even know. And then at the end, well, you worked. So even when you worked for Biden, Obama, whatever. Yes. But when I worked there, DEI came through. So DEI, in her opinion, solved or was moving towards solving the problem of racism and misogyny in the Democratic Party and in the executive branch under Biden in the Democratic Party because Biden was discriminating against black women.
Right.
You can't make this crap up.
No, and she's clearly angry about it.
She's angry about it. So it's Trump's fault.
Exactly.
I just thought that there is nothing more perfect to sum up the mentality of liberals as that thing right there.
Yeah.
Because what you got was a sense of entitlement because of my education, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. A victim mentality that I've been the worst paid, and then the projection that where she has been the lowest paid person because she's a black woman is all liberal and Democrat institutions.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to work the next 4 years. They're doing it for us.
I know. We're playing more and more audio these days, but we can't help it. I mean, there's no way to not play it. You got to play them in their own words. This is the state of the left today. And, of course, it's all Trump's fault. Yeah.
I shake my head. It's really amazing. And I think it's when you saw the Democrats out this week going crazy again, screaming and yelling. And I thought about it coming into work. I said, wow, their major message is we need riots in the street. The View was talking about, we go to the streets, go to the streets, go to the streets. And the thing is, they didn't used to have to tell people to go to the streets. Now they're begging people to go to the streets. Please go to the streets. Please. We've got to riot. We've got to riot. We cannot convince the American public that the insanity that we believe is the direction we should go in this country. Mm-hmm. So riot, pillage, burn, destroy.
Yeah. Schumer, clearly the, leader of the left and all of the excitement, or if you will, arousal that is on the left.
Oh, God, no.
He's in charge of and heading up, we will win. We won't rest.
And
we will.
And finally, finally, we can put to rest the John McCain rhetoric.
Fight with me.
We can finally put that to rest.
Yeah.
Fight with me. Fight with me. I was like, shut up.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, because the Schumer thing is, far beyond that.
Yes.
But it is, when I saw that, when just over the last couple of weeks, you see it's exactly what you just said. They want people to be angry and run to the streets. Well, in years past, in recent years, they didn't have to do that, as you mentioned. We're taking it to the streets. Nobody's even standing up. Come on. Everybody's yawning. No, we mean it. I mean, if you want to join us, we'll be outside.
This is war, fight in the street, all violent rhetoric coming from the Democrats this week.
Right.
And they have no place else to go next week.
Nope, they don't.
And I think the predicament is what we saw when they were screaming and yelling. They all voted 2 weeks ago, except for 2 Democrats in the House. Every one of them voted for the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. The Democratic Party, 95% plus of Democrats believe in the misogyny of denying women the opportunity to play against other women.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it's crazy, and then they knew it. When I came on yesterday, one of the first things I said was I looked at you and said, probably in our pre-show meeting, Eric, you can't beat this imagery. There is Trump, and as people pointed out, he's not rubbing any of their shoulders.
or sniffing their hair.
Sniffing their hair.
That's a great point.
But all the and then he told, come on up closer to me. Come on up, as if looking at secrets, because it was like he was basically waving off Secret Service saying, it's okay, they're girls, they're not going to harm me. And so they all came up and surrounded him. They completely, because they were back further. They came up, they surrounded him, and then he's saying, okay, I'm going to sign this. This is going to be a 10. And he, makes the big letters of his, the big strokes with his name. He goes, that's a 10. And they all start cheering. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm looking at you going, oh, my God. How do they comment on it? And except for the insanity of Representative Crockett of Texas, the Democrats were really quiet. Yeah. It's like, wow, they were really quiet on this one. It's like, because you can't beat that imagery.
No, you can't.
And now the whole misogyny argument, the fact that you don't care about women, is starting to stick on Democrats, and they don't know what to do.
Right.
Because they can't back off it. They know they're wrong. And that's, I think, where we're getting to now. The Democrats know that they've done everything they could, and the American public is not buying their arguments. They're not buying their arguments on the border. They're not buying their arguments on the insanity and the misogyny of the radical transgender movement. They're not buying it. They're not buying DEI and the critical race theory that whites are culturally racist to the point where society must be set up with the assumption that whites are culturally racist, which comes to almost to the point of being genetic inside of them. The American public is rejecting that, and the American public is rejecting that, no, we shouldn't go through and look to see where the wasteful spending is.
Right.
And they know it now. That's the thing. They know it, and so they're screaming and begging people to riot in the streets. That's what this is war, fight in the streets. I don't know what the hell else that means.
No, I mean,
so they're begging
riot.
them to.
That's what they want them to do.
They're begging them to riot, but a significant number of those people are looking and going, "Well, this isn't worth rioting for."
Right.
There's nothing worth rioting here. You're losing here.
Right.
And I think Scott Jennings made a great point. Not everything is 80-20, but it may be 70-30 or 65, whatever. But on the for example, the transgender issue, it is actually 79-18. You can't defend it. You can't win. And Trump is picking up on all these things that are such the core, as we told him to do the core stuff. The other stuff, for example, the Gaza and all that. I mean, it's okay because that's a dream.
Right.
And you and I think, gave a reasonable opinion of what he was doing on that the other day. Look, I don't believe that Trump doesn't communicate as effectively as I like to see him, but he's doing a hell of a lot better than he did in his first term. And on the major issues, most of it is pretty slam dunk on what he's doing. We have some disagreements. You heard from us this week on that, but on the major core 4 or 5 issues out there, he's winning. You cannot. Oh, let me throw out. You cannot win that we shouldn't deport criminal illegal immigrants.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Because,
and those that have been told by a judge,
Yeah,
you've got to leave the country.
Right.
You're not going to win that with the American public.
You're not. And it was, again, the border was right up there with the economy on the most important issues. Bill Melugin at Fox News going along with the ICE raid in Aurora, Colorado for the gang members. And they showed up and they were gone. And Bill Melugin reporting from Fox News saying it's clear that there's a intel leak somewhere. He said yesterday on the Will Cain show, he was saying, it appears it could be at the federal government level. I don't know where that leak would be, but the word got out that they were coming. Now, the thing is that they also reported that the Aurora, Colorado raid was supposed to take place a week earlier, and it was delayed a week. So, again, I don't know what happened, but you had protesters out there near those apartments protesting ICE. These are gang members. These are violent individuals who don't need to be in the United States, and people were protesting against ICE taking them away.
Right. Gang members.
Yeah.
You're not going to win that argument.
Nope.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Riley Gaines spoke yesterday. We'll hear from her on social media. She had a statement on it. You know what I noticed, especially on social media? It's like some people just awoke to this and went. I saw a number of people posting saying, how did we ever get to the point where the president had to put in an executive order to stop men from playing against women's sport? How did this ever get a foothold?
Right.
Well, you and I were there through it all.
Well, I mean,
from the very beginning.
We look at it and honestly, it shouldn't require a president to enforce Title IX. Title IX is very clear. Obama is the first to distort that. This is our interpretation of Title IX. Well, your interpretation is wrong. Smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, smartest guy in the room said, no, back when Title IX was passed, they meant men who think they're women should be women.
Right.
Yeah, that's what the original intent was of the congressional legislation.
Their measurement specifically was the student only had to say it.
Yes.
So you could belong to a protected class simply by saying so. Well, if anybody can do that, then there are no protected classes any longer.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Let's get to this audio here. Riley Gaines, the other day, put a message out on social media.
Okay.
And let's hear it here. Here we go.
Today was a huge win for women and a huge win for common sense. If you didn't already know, President Trump signed an executive order declaring that men are no longer welcome in women's sports or women's spaces. I can't even fathom how we have reached a point where a president has to use his executive powers to declare something that kindergartners know. But nonetheless, I am overwhelmed with emotion. To be able to be in the room standing behind the president as he signed this executive order is the most vindicative and gratifying feeling.
We're honored to be joined today by many incredible advocates for women's sports, including the brave swimmer at the forefront of this battle. And Riley Gaines is a person that I've been watching. Fought hard. Riley was a 12-time All-American. Well, that's pretty good. 12-time All-American who sacrificed countless hours in the pool just for a chance at the title. It's so important to her. She gave up everything and just gave everything she had. But then the league forced her to share a spot on the podium with a male swimmer who took her trophy while the media celebrated this stolen glory. And Riley is just a tremendous athlete, and it was a very unfair situation. I watched it. A lot of people watched it. It was ridiculous, frankly. But I want to thank Riley. She really has been in the forefront. People that aren't that well-versed in this would say that she was the leader. And great job, Riley. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And this visual right here, I don't even have words. There are no words to describe just how much this visual means to me. The message I received from President Trump today was that women are worthy. Women are worthy of privacy in areas of undressing. Women are worthy of safety. Women are worthy of equal opportunity. Women are worthy of calling themselves champions. All of that is in total contrast with the previous administration and the current elected Democratic Party.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's a great attack at the Democratic Party. And the Republicans should continue to pound this and go after the Democrats, even though you see with the NCAA now saying, okay, men will not compete.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I like from the White House is the White House is strictly saying biological men and biological women.
Right.
Because you cannot trans from... You believe you can, but you cannot transition from a male to a female.
Right. So biologically, you're not.
Biologically, you're not. Yes. So I like how the White House attacked that, because even in here where you've got, I've got, hang on one second here, not yet, but Stephen A. Smith commenting on it. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Is an advantage. That is an advantage. Anything is my point that gives you any kind of an advantage, whether it's weed with what I just brought up, whether it's how you were born as a male as you transition to being a female.
You can't transition. He said male transitioning to a female. You can't.
Can't do that.
Let's continue here.
It's about the detrimental effect it has on your competition. If you were born a male, conceivably, genetically, you are believed to have a level of strength that the other side may not have. That's an advantage. That's not speaking against anybody from that community. That's not casting aspersions on anybody. It's literally an unfair advantage. If you were born a male and you're transitioning into being a female, physically speaking, the facts show you have an unfair advantage. That's unfair to the ladies who were born ladies.
Yeah, you know, the ladies.
I'm sorry.
Having to say it out loud, but hearing him do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And I've seen that more on social media over the last couple of days. Like, how did we get here?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, this is insanity. And, hey, 2 weeks ago, think about this. 75 million people in this country voted to continue that.
Yeah. Right.
75 million misogynists voted for that.
Yep.
You and I said a long time ago, if the Democratic Party attempts to defend something like this, then they're going to defend things that are not defensible, and they went right to it when Biden came in, because this started before. And, you know, the radical transgender movement, this started before the Biden administration. But, they justified an open border.
Yeah.
You know, they tried to justify inflation. They tried to make you think that inflation was good.
Yep.
They tried to convince you that defunding the police would be a benefit. They tried to convince you, well, you know, when there's a domestic call, police shouldn't show up. It should be counselors.
Yeah.
They decided to live in this acid delusional world. By the way, for the people that don't know, maybe the youngsters out there, acid is LSD.
Right.
If you wish to live, and I'm just using that because I'm old school. Back at Woodstock, don't do the brown acid.
Exactly.
I remember I could have gone to Woodstock, but I didn't. I was still under Dad's supervision.
Right.
Dad, can I go to Woodstock?
No.
Get your hair cut, you damn hippie. There's a picture of me when I was like 24, 25 years old, when I was the machinist. I believe I was working at the steel plant at the time. And I had to be like 24, a couple years out of college. My hair is down to my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing the picture, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it, I went, my God, my hair was that long? And I went to my dad, I said, how did you allow me to do that? Because I was still living at the house. How did you allow me to do that? He goes, well, you weren't making a statement. You were just too lazy to get your hair cut. I went, okay, that's a great point.
Well, or as my dad said, look, I had one daughter. Why not two?
Oh, I love that one picture of you, though. That one picture of you. You got to be in your 20s, right?
I was actually 19.
Okay, when the hair was real long. Was there a little bit of a mustache? Do I remember that?
Yeah, I had a mustache.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were not a hair band. We were a metal band. And I was in radio, actually. Yeah, what?
So metal bands were allowed mustaches, but hair bands were not?
That's the distinction.
Oh,
the hair bands definitely wanted to be, look more like, Poison wore the makeup, not like Kiss makeup. They wore like women's makeup.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
And that kind of thing. So we didn't do the glam thing.
So the stash showed that you were a fully 100% red-blooded
Actually,
male.
for me personally, it showed that I was past puberty. Because without it, my face, the most baby face you've ever seen. Yeah, and that wasn't even the longest by far that my hair ever was. There's a pile of pictures. I don't have it, and somebody else has it, but there's a pile of pictures where my hair is down below my shoulder blades. I mean, at the longest. So, yeah. But my dad was always like, yeah. Because the last short haircut before that I got was on Laughlin Air Force Base by my mom with the homemade, clippers, right? The clippers, not homemade clippers, but clippers you used at home.
Right.
Which they use at barbershops with proper training. Mom did not have that training. And we went full on enlisted. And so it was very short. But, Dad never had a problem with the long hair for some reason. As long as I, cleaned the drains out and everything else. I just had to mind the other rules of the house. And I wouldn't have gone to Woodstock had I been of age. I wasn't a fan of hippies back then. I wasn't a fan of hippies until long after I started the show, actually.
Then you became a fan of hippies.
I didn't like hippies. Then I realized the original hippies actually were more libertarian.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. They were, the old school. They didn't.
The
trust,
modern hippies
they
are
didn't trust
wannabes.
the
They're
government
not
at all.
Unless they're people from that era that still hold that same value. They are more libertarian than they are.
Which makes me think over the next 4 years, because we saw, for example, you and I have talked about how, for example, rock used to be about rebelling against the status quo and the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
That you wish to be independent. Rock and roll used to be about independence, stay out of my face.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust the government.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some concepts were, of course, were ridiculous. I mean, the whole concept that there's such a concept as free love. It's like free love. It's just we just love each other. Nah. You're gonna find out there is no such thing as free love.
Trust me, it's not free.
Yeah, and they learned that. They had some childish.
Well, they did admit that whole time they were experimenting with pretty much everything.
Right.
Halfway through the concert, don't take the brown acid.
That made a lot of people paranoid, didn't it?
I just took the brown acid. What is he talking about? Oh, my gosh, I know what he's talking about.
But I wonder, because we got back to that now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw it. I mean, when now you don't see it as much. Remember all the bands, remember Green Day and Rage Against the Machine, and they're all out there. And we're like, well, you're not promoting individuality. You're promoting conformity.
Right.
You're not a rebel. You're not punk.
Right.
You're not Rage Against the Machine.
Right.
You're Rage for the Machine.
Exactly.
You wish people to conform.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting there saying, we trust a massive federal government.
Right.
We believe you should conform. We're promoting censorship. We're promoting no free press.
Mm-hmm.
We're promoting lies from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's another reason why rock and roll died. There was no individuality or rebellion. You and I said this a long time ago. This goes back to when probably 15 years ago, and so many more people were into Rage Against the Machine, and we said, come on, they're a bunch of Marxists.
Well,
socialist Marxists. They're not about individuality and the individual, and freedom. They're the complete opposite of that.
Well, and there's two approaches. There's the message rock and roll, right, which goes back a long time. And then there's, that kind of reflects what's going on, socially in this country or in society, right? And I think with those bands, those later bands, they weren't getting it right. You know what I mean?
No, they weren't. No.
Rage Against the Machine in a time when, things are pretty good. You know what I mean? I mean, there was music during the Vietnam War era, the Civil Rights era, that came out that said, and it made statements and was like, okay, it's connecting, on some level. Well, Rage Against the Machine was like, okay, but what are you actually saying? What are you actually promoting? Green Day or any of the modern day bands, it's, you know what? You have it pretty good. And then the other side of that is the creativity. And they all might be great musicians, but, it's got to be something original. It has to be something, if you think about what went into making an album back in the day.
I think about it that when you go back to, the grunge and, you go back to the grunge and even which sort of led into Rage Against the Machine and all that. But, and I look back at bands at that time, where they're, basically were revolting against what? And then there were a few bands that came out that basically said, well, it's not society that's screwed up. We're screwed up. Bands like Cracker, remember the band Cracker?
Yeah.
That had I Hate My Generation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or a band I love from Canada, which is punk grunge, still today called the Headstones, which is Hugh Dillon, was the sheriff on Yellowstone, because he's also an actor, and also, what is it, was it Kingstown, Lords of Kingstown, whatever it is,
Yeah,
about
Mayor of Kingstown.
Mayor of Kingstown, yeah. He's the executive producer of that.
Right.
And both those bands basically were saying, I'm screwed up.
Right, yeah.
And I went, okay, that's more of an accurate thing. But a lot of the bands were still trying to say society's screwed up. And so what? You need to conform with a government that's more oppressive and wishes to oppress you more and dictate what you do in your life. But what I wonder is now, over the next 4 years, where now sanity reigns, will that move a significant number of Democrats who look and say, like the Rappaports, like the Pinkuses, who looked and said, they're lying to us. This is all BS. They wish to control us. Will there be a movement that way? There's a possibility that could happen, that the shift happens in that direction for Republicans.
You know what happened to Def Leppard, by the way?
What?
With the low-carb movement, the whole thing of having a sugar fetish went away. You can't just pour some sugar on me when you're totally low-carb. You can't do that anymore.
God, I hated that.
You can't.
I was a wedding DJ and had to play that song remember one wedding 10 times. And I went, I hate this song so much.
Yeah. I don't even know what it means.
I loathe that. I do. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, this is going to be interesting. Sanctuary city mayors to testify at House Oversight after the Attorney General cuts them off from federal funds. I think tomorrow you're going to have Democrats again back out there again screaming and yelling.
Yeah.
That they're going to go crazy about that.
Yeah.
They're going to go absolutely crazy about that. There's going to be court cases and everything else. But what it does, and this is so critically important during the Trump administration, when it's in there in the courts, when they're testifying before Congress, when Democrats are screaming and yelling and saying this is war and fight in the streets, people start asking, well, what is this about?
Right.
They're protecting criminal illegal immigrants?
Right.
Sorry. We'll get to that coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow, what a week it's been. What first 3 weeks?
I know. I have to remember to breathe.
I know. But I do get some correspondence from people saying, yeah, but all the lawsuits and everything and the agenda, it doesn't matter. That's all part of the process. And when there are lawsuits filed, there's a lawsuit that was a judge temporarily put on hold, the voluntary furloughs.
Yeah.
which are 60,000. Well, that's the federal unions attempting to hold on to 60,000 people paying dues.
Yeah, right.
So that's going to happen. And the judge said, I'm not doing this on the merits, just want to know what everything is.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to be able to, if the executive branch wishes to do a buyout, I have no idea how that's against the law.
Right.
I mean, you've got to, and they haven't pointed out how it's against the law.
Right.
And any points they made that I saw were not legal points. And so you're not, no matter what the issues are, because the issues right now are the sanctuary cities. The issues are right now, and maybe it would be on the back burner, is the border. But you look at I saw the Border Patrol chief yesterday, I believe it was on Fox, saying it's way, way down. It's down 90%, 95% from when they even took over.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, the border, inflation is something they've got to focus on, which, as you've seen, the president, and I do think the president did take the criticism from Republicans inside Congress saying, what are you doing talking about tariffs? What are you doing? Because he knows. I mean, he said it the first time ever that he said it as a president. I don't know if he said it when he wasn't president, but first time that he's been president where he said there'll be, there's going to be pain, likely there'll be pain from the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, pain means what? It means prices go up.
Right.
It means economic growth goes down. And the whole point is, if you're saying that we need the tariffs and Americans need to sacrifice for it, and you do that before you put the pro-growth policies in, well, then you may be dooming yourself.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you're going to lose that leverage.
Right, you're going to lose that leverage because the next thing is, people want to know the sanctuary city stuff you're winning at, the DOGE you're winning at when you point out the waste in government, but the thing that still is of the most concern to people, because now the border, they're looking at how they're fighting sanctuary cities, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But the actual border they view as, okay, they're taking care of the border. Now it's getting rid of the criminal illegal immigrants, and Democrats are trying to stop that. That's a great point for Republicans. Democrats are going to lose that. But the thing that affects people still every single day is inflation, and it's still there. It's still near 3%,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 3% on top of everything that we've seen.
Right.
Over the last few years.
Yeah,
so
the impact on prices. It's where the prices are right now, and the prices aren't coming down, and, that's the problem. It's, the inflation rate people really don't pay attention to. They're paying attention to their grocery bill.
Yeah, how it feels when they go in. So when the president, when they came out yesterday and started, here are the things that we want on tax policy, they want this thing done. And so the president did shift gears, and I heard nothing over the last 2 days about tariffs. Nothing.
Right.
Wasn't even brought up.
Right.
And I think it's like, let's talk the pro-growth stuff first before we do anything like that. So, but Democratic mayors of so-called sanctuary cities that protect illegal immigrants that have committed crimes have agreed to testify before the House Oversight Committee in March after the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, signed a directive calling or cutting those jurisdictions off from federal funding on her first day at the Justice Department. They are going to be howling over that, I believe, today.
Yeah.
Bondi, who was sworn in as the Attorney General on Wednesday, issued a number of day one directives, including ordering the Department of Justice to pause all federal funding for sanctuary cities.
Well, again, as you just mentioned, the court challenges, and everybody says, well, there's going to be tons of court challenges. The conversation, the debate, because it's the will of the people versus the left. Basically, you look at why Trump won, and also what's been in place in here in terms of sanctuary city policy. But it's part of the sanctuary city policy that you see in place where the protests are happening. I mentioned Aurora, Colorado, where people were actually there protesting ICE that was there to arrest gang members who were here illegally. And they didn't find them. They had left. Somebody tipped them off. But that's what you have in place here. And so the conversation becomes right there at the top of the list for people, which is exactly where it was during the political season. In the polls, inflation in the economy and the border were right up there at the top.
Bondi also directed litigating components of the Justice Department to investigate instances of jurisdictions that are impeding law enforcement and directed that they be prosecuted when necessary. I saw, what's his name? Tom Homan.
Yeah.
Say, we think we know where the leak came from, and we're looking into whether we're going to prosecute or not.
Well, I thought about that, and I didn't see that part, but they were talking about the leak. Yes, it was clearly somebody leaked it. And then I thought to myself, well, that should be actionable.
Yeah.
If it's an inside leak, that's actionable.
Well, if you're the protesters that are warning the people, and you know that's like more, if you went out with a bullhorn and there was a criminal that was in a house and you told them to get out before the police got there, and you know they're criminals, you're aiding and abetting.
Mm-hmm.
And if these are criminal, illegal immigrants.
Right.
And I don't mean criminal from the fact that they're here illegally. I mean the other crime that they committed. If you want the slam dunk,
right,
the legal slam dunk, he probably has one there.
Yeah.
They knew that people that committed crimes were in there and were telling them to get out to avoid police.
And I think the leak,
the leak, too. Oh, the leak absolutely, yes.
would be massive.
Yeah.
That would be...
Right. That's aiding and abetting a criminal.
Yeah.
That's
and
even
I'm very anxious to learn more about that, to find out how that happened.
That's completely outside illegal immigration.
Right, exactly.
These are criminals,
right,
that have done other things. This
right.
isn't, what status they have. This is, you're aiding and abetting criminals.
Right.
And plus you're aiding and abetting an illegal immigrant, which in itself federally is a felony.
Right.
So you've got both the state, not that the state, because it was in Colorado, right?
Right.
And these are Venezuelan gang members.
Mm-hmm.
You can't win that argument.
No, you can't.
And so
they were expecting to get possibly a couple of hundred. I think they ended up getting 30. Only one of those 30 was a gang member. So the massive amount, the overwhelming majority of them are somewhere in the wind.
In late January, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer invited mayors of sanctuary cities to testify before the panel after launching an investigation into whether sanctuary city policies and their effect on public safety and federal immigration enforcement. Comer invited the mayors of Boston, Chicago, Denver, and New York City to testify at a public hearing and requested they provide documents and communications related to their policies. A hearing was initially set for February 11th, but the committee aide told Fox News Digital the committee worked with mayors to accommodate their schedules. The committee received final confirmation from Boston, Denver, and New York City earlier this week and received confirmation from Chicago on Wednesday. It'll be interesting to see the difference between the New York City mayor and the Chicago mayor, and how they discuss it. But I mean, that will be must-watch TV. But you're talking about sanctuary cities, and at the moment, you're talking about criminal illegal immigrants.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're not going
to win it.
That.
Again, the left believes they're fighting Trump and the Trump administration. This is the will of the people. The polls show it. It may not be right there locally in your town, in these blue towns, in these blue states, but on the federal level, on the nationwide level, it's the will of the people. It was the number one issue, especially when we're talking about the criminal elements.
Yeah. That's where you are right now. You're right.
You lose that all day long. And I was thinking when I was listening to the report, because you could hear the protesters in the background shouting at ICE. And I thought, this is what the left doesn't see over and over again. It's the same mentality that has you justifying the murder of a CEO because they're the CEO of a healthcare company. This is how morbid and backwards it has become. They're there, think about it. The protesters there fighting for the rights of gang members, criminal gang members.
Yep.
That's what they're doing.
You can't win that.
Nope. Not going to win it. And everything you touched on it earlier going into the break at the bottom of the hour. But everything that is going on right now with the Trump administration, all these moves, DOGE. When the rank and file, okay, why is the left screaming about Elon Musk? What's going on here? Oh, they're trying to cut government spending? Does that become a thing that we're supposed to protest against? We should be cutting government spending and waste and everything else. And then this. Wait a minute. Why are they fighting for this? Wait a minute. Boys and women's locker rooms? Hold on a second. What's going on here? All of this is part of the conversation because of the actions being taken right now and how the left is reacting. They're screaming. They're fighting for all of these things when these were the things that got Trump elected in the first place.
And their message is, we don't like any of this stuff that's being reversed. Riot.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to the streets. Right.
This is war.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take the fight to the streets.
Right.
You're encouraging rioting. Is
Yep.
that you're communicating.
There's no other
that
way
it's
to
time to
interpret that.
riot. You're not saying protest peacefully.
Right.
I mean, my gosh, Democrats, that's insurrection talk.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. We're going to have a march. We're going to, that's not what they said.
Not saying march peacefully. Nope.
Nope.
This is a war. Take the fight to the streets.
Yep.
It's the language of violence that the Democrats are now using.
Right.
And remember, by the Democrats' standard, if you say march peacefully, that is promoting an insurrection.
Yes, it is. It's wrong.
From the Democrat standard.
Right.
That's what we're using.
They write the rules. We don't write the rules.
You know, it's funny because it's a Friday, and I'll go home and I'll be thinking, wow, 3 whole days before we're back on the air again.
Oh, who knows what could happen
I will
before Sunday night.
I will get no rest.
Exactly.
I need to do a bunch of I know it's February in Texas, but we have a couple of more warm days here before it gets cold, and I got lawn work to do. And it's weird. People go, what do you mean you got lawn work to do? It's February. Yeah, but we have some warm days in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Got to control the winter weeds now because it's getting a little warmer, so they're starting to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Time to put the pre-emergent on.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. Again, so much has happened in just a couple of weeks. There's no telling what will happen by Sunday night, honestly.
The Democrats have come up with a new strategy, raise it another octave, and turn the volume up to 11.
And we're not buying just Gaza. We're going to buy Syria, too. So we're going all in.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, Riley Gaines gets a ton of credit because she's the one that really came out full force in the United States against the radical transgender movement. I mean, she was the one that was the most threatened and bullied and you name it. But you also had Martina Navratilova that was out there earlier, more quietly, but also J.K. on the international stage, J.K. Rowling was.
Yeah, right.
And she was, in fact, she made a statement on it yesterday. She really took the real first big fire on it.
Yeah,
when
she
you
did.
think about it, she
Yeah,
was the
right.
one that really did. Raleigh Gaines in the United States was the one that really changed everything, though. But
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling was really the first one out there, celebrity, woman celebrity, just saying this is garbage. She had a couple of things yesterday to say we'll have that coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.